Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Maven podcast, where I help ambitious entrepreneurs and investors find a thriving franchise fit or flip their business into one. Today, I have with me Dan Grech. Dan is the founder and CEO of BizHack Academy, whose mission is to train 1 million underserved businesses on how to grow 10x faster using AI-powered marketing and business storytelling so the owners, their stakeholders, and the community can thrive. Quite an ambitious undertaking. Dan, thank you very much for being here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an honor to be speaking to your franchise audience because certainly one of the approaches we're going to take to get to that 1 million, that ambitious goal of 1 million, is serving franchisees and the franchises that partner with them with training to equip them to market themselves better.
Love it, Dan. So let's start from the beginning before we go to that spot. What inspired you to start your business in the first place?
Well, there's a couple ways to answer that, but it all starts back in 2013 when I was in the midst of a high-flying, gold-plated journalism career as a correspondent for the Miami Herald, NPR, PBS, and then suddenly and unexpectedly lost my job. And like so many journalists, had to do a mid-career reinvention because journalism as an industry is struggling. And you know, faced with the need in my late 30s to reinvent myself, I identified that I'm a great storyteller. So I said, can I, instead of being a journalistic storyteller, can I be a business storyteller? And so I would go to my coaches and I would say, hey, I want to become a business storyteller. They're like, yeah, that's called marketing. I'm like, oh, okay, marketing. Got it. But I want to do it online, right? I don't want to do it in print or on radio. What's that? And they're like, digital marketing. I'm like, okay, digital marketing. So I swear to God, this is how clueless I was. And then I said, great. I'm going to jump on YouTube. I'll learn digital marketing in a few weeks, and then I'll be ready for my next stage in my career. And well, anyway, everyone who's been down the digital marketing YouTube rabbit hole knows that it doesn't work that way. I started getting just bombarded by educational marketing from HubSpot and Google Ads and so forth. So I said, okay, no, this isn't going to work. This is actually a little bit more complicated than I thought. Let's go do a boot camp for mid-career professionals on how to learn how to market. I don't want an MBA. I don't want to bother with that, but I do need to learn how to market, how to tell stories online for businesses. And didn't exist. At least I couldn't find it in 2013. And so that's sort of where I left it, right? I just basically had to learn it the hard way, which is, piece by piece, bit by bit, wandering around a dark forest with only a flashlight. Ended up getting myself a job as the head of PR for a billion-dollar company, convinced them to then take over their incipient digital marketing program. I knew almost nothing, but I knew more than anyone else in the company. So I was able to fake it for about a year. Then I was able to convince, based on that, elevated title of senior director, to allow the local community college to hire me to train to teach a course in marketing. I'll never forget the first day after they hired me. They said, okay, well, let's build this program to train businesses how to market themselves. What's step number one? I said, hire a co-instructor
Oh,
because I needed, and he started to laugh because he knew I'm a great storyteller, I'm a great communicator. I didn't know marketing. And that's how it started. Like I just built up my knowledge the hard way over 7 years. And I like to say that figured out a thing or two over that process of teaching, eventually realized both working at the companies and working as an adjunct at the local community college were not a fit for me. I wanted to start my own business, a training academy. And now we've compressed, 7 hard years of learning into a 7-week program. So that's BizHack.
awesome, Dan. Quite the interesting story. I love it on that. So walk us through your services. What services do you offer folks out there?
Yeah, we are primarily a training academy. And what that means is we teach classes. And we teach classes in cutting edge practical techniques to market your small business. Couple things is we specialize in training for small to medium-sized businesses. So franchisees are a perfect example. So we really specialize in training franchisees and other small businesses in how to use marketing to grow faster, or what's known as lead generation. The other thing that we do, which is really unique, and really very much speaks to my background as a journalist and storyteller, is we also teach these businesses, which are almost by definition Me Too businesses, right? A franchise is by definition a Me Too business. In other words, we're doing the same thing in another market, Me Too. We teach them how to tell their origin story in a way that connects people to them individually. This is really important. I just told you my origin story. There are lots of training academies in AI and marketing, but none that have my story. Nobody who's a journalist, nobody who's a master's degree in storytelling. That makes me different. That makes me differentiated. That provides a unique differentiator. One of my favorite stories is Mosquito Joe of Miami. I've worked extensively with Neighborly and Mosquito Joe of Miami, and I've worked with more than 30 franchises. And you would think when it comes to outdoor spraying of mosquitoes, it's all the same story. These operators who run these locals are all the same. And it couldn't be more different. You have people from the military, you have mothers, you have, Yoel Gutierrez of Mosquito Joe of Miami, whose father ran a construction business that he was supposed to inherit. And then his father died unexpectedly when Yoel was 16, and the business was sold off to its partners. And Yoel not only lost his dad, but he lost his inheritance, which was to run this construction business. And so I said, well, Yoel, how does a pest control company relate to residential construction? And he said, well, my dad and I are both dedicated to making homes safe and comfortable for people. Boom. There's a straight line from Yoel's dad to Mosquito Joe. And guess what? His dad's name was Jose, but everyone knew him as Joe. There are not accidents in this world, Gregory.
Yep.
Like, people choose their franchise from a list for reasons they're not even fully aware of. And we work with Z's to help them understand why they're doing what they're doing and why it matters. And that has to be aligned with the branding and the story of the overall franchise. But in the end, all business is local. All business is done human to human. And if you, as the owner of the franchise, can speak in a human way about why you run the business and why people should support you, you'll be more successful. Yoel, his franchise is now top 5 in the country out of 350 Mosquito Joe franchisees. And part of the reason is because of his business story.
That is amazing, Dan. I love that on there. So, Neighborly, yeah, Neighborly is a huge brand, the biggest home services franchise business in the U.S. It's great people. Good you got started over there with Mosquito Joe on that one. Are they your ideal clients, franchisees, or do you have an ideal client, or do you work with just about anybody?
We work with any small business that puts a priority on lead generation. And let me be really clear about this. This is an important distinction. The alternative is e-commerce. So e-commerce basically assumes that the conversion is going to happen online. Lead generation is more about a person getting on the phone and talking to someone in a sales process. And the approach to the marketing is different. E-commerce is far more technical. You need to use platforms like Amazon. It's just like a different beast. So we don't specialize in that. We specialize in those organizations and companies of all industries that prize lead generation, and home services is a great example of that. The ideal, we primarily, like, in addition to working, about half our business is just with individual business owners, small business owners who hire us to train them. The other half of our business, though, is with what I call business support organization and franchises, particularly emerging franchises of between 0 and 100 units are our ideal customer within the franchise world. So if you are a member of an emerging franchise, a franchise with 100 or fewer locations, or if you run an emerging franchise, or if you aspire to running an emerging franchise, we specialize in serving you. And the reason why we specialize in emerging franchises is they generally don't have the brand recognition or the central marketing team to really provide all the support that their locals need. And as a result, they need to figure out a way to give an additional layer of support to those locals. And there basically are two paths. Either you hire like a Reach Local or Kigo to be their agency, and then you approve a marketing agency, and then they work with the locals individually. And there are benefits and drawbacks to that approach that I can talk about. And then the alternative is you give them training and support so they can market themselves with their own internal resources, usually like an office manager. And we help with the second path, that we can also help support the management of the agency, helping them interpret the dashboards and holding the agency to account. It's a different scope of work than if we're actually helping the locals market themselves. And that's how we help franchisees.
I see. So you don't actually do the marketing for them. You're training them on how to do the marketing themselves.
Yeah, this is
Or is that
definitely a teach the man how to fish kind of offering. And we work in close partnership with agencies. Like when you're working with an agency, 99 out of 100 franchisees will tell me, I have no idea what the agency is doing and I have no idea how to measure their success. If you're in that boat, it's your fault, not the agency's if they had bad performance. It's because you don't know enough to be able to manage them effectively. No agency without management will have success. And so what we do is we empower local Z's who have agencies they're working with, manage them more effectively. That starts primarily with data, understanding what are the success metrics and how to see and measure success in the campaigns. And so we coach Z's in how to manage their agencies. In many cases, emerging franchises have chosen not to work with an agency. I'll give you a great example. One of our clients is Keith Paul from Handy Pro, which is a 10-unit Midwestern handyman emerging franchise. And they have decided, for reasons that I won't go into, that they don't want to use an agency for their locals. Instead, they have gone and trained and provide support to their locals themselves. But they do a very intensive onboarding for 90 days, and then we take over after that.
perfect? So you're getting into the world of emerging franchises and helping them grow a little faster than they would on their own.
100%. And it's the reason we love franchises is there's a mutually beneficial driver for this. If the locals make more revenue, a portion of that goes to the central. If the locals are more successful, there's a lower turnover rate and it's easier to recruit new franchises. So the value proposition is so compelling, but also if you don't support them properly and they fail, you're going to hurt your emerging franchises prospects. It's going to become less appealing. Many of your audience members are looking at different franchises, and one of the things they look at is failure rate. They look at first-year revenue rates. They look at support for marketing because most of them are operators. They're great at operating a business, not necessarily expert in marketing it. So all of these things are like check, 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 the things they're looking for. And I got to tell you, emerging franchises struggle mightily with this. This is an almost universal pain point in the emerging franchise space. When you get a little larger, like to the Neighborlies of the world, it's been solved to a greater extent because they have more resources and more shared services. So like this isn't as pressing an issue for McDonald's or Neighborly as it is for Handy Pro and other emerging franchises. And, in full disclosure, Mosquito Joe, a lot of what we did with Mosquito Joe when they were an independent became duplicative of stuff that Neighborly already provides when they became part of one of the largest franchise networks.
But he still came to you to get a little bit of help, it sounds like.
Yeah, a lot of the work we did, though, predated their being owned by Neighborly.
I got you before Neighborly bought him out and they were just emerging. Ah, perfect. That's good.
I mean,
Now,
honestly, we helped position them for the purchase. Like
oh, that's
we
good to
made
know.
Mesquite. I mean, I don't want to take overly credit, but I worked with more than 30 of their franchises,
Wow.
more than 10% of their total, and drove enormous levels of revenue, which were factored into them being one of the top franchises, emerging franchises in the country, and ultimately getting acquired. So, revenue speaks volumes, and we're all about driving revenue. But I mean, I want to give credit to where credit's due. We're teaching people how to fish. The work was done by the locals. But the difference was, rather than spaghetti against the wall, they had a systematic approach to their marketing.
Always a good thing, Dan. Yeah, spaghetti doesn't work out too well on that one. That's funny. So I'm fascinated about the fact that you actually testified before Congress at one point in time.
Yeah. So it was almost a year ago. I was invited to speak in Congress, specifically the House of Representatives Subcommittee on Small Business.
Hmm.
And I was invited by a Republican representative from South Florida, where my company originated. And I was asked to basically talk about my experience training 10,000 small businesses in AI-powered marketing. And I had basically two recommendations for Congress. Number one, regulate AI, put guardrails around AI. Business community hates uncertainty. And right now, we're really deferring most of our regulation on AI to Europe. And it just doesn't make sense. Why are we inventing a technology that Europe is then regulating? This is 100% true of social media. Most of the social media regulation has come out of the European Union, not Congress, which has not passed a single law regulating social media. I know it's an incredible thing.
Yeah,
So there's a dereliction of duty. I'm like, Congress, you got to regulate this. Just give us clear rules of the game and we'll follow them. And the stakes couldn't be higher because AI can be used for good and evil, and we need to put some guardrails around it. For me, the small business use case is mostly good, right? It's about growing businesses faster, helping us who have really restricted resources make the most of those resources. I call it more, better, faster, new. 10, 100xing our productivity and our quality of our marketing. It's an exciting place to be, but that's just a little small piece of it. There's also disinformation and misinformation and huge amounts of scamming that's happening, and there are lots and lots of complete disregard of intellectual property and privacy and data security. There's a lot. AI is a pretty robust topic, and so Congress should
true.
be involved as our country's lawmakers. And then the second thing is, please fund training for businesses to learn AI. We have failed in many ways at the digital transformation of our economy. 1 out of 4 businesses still don't have a website. And you can imagine,
Wow.
yeah, I know, it's an amazing number. And predominantly those businesses are in communities that are underserved, low income. It's just a mom and pop shop on the on the corner. And they probably use social media and just their storefront as their marketing. So, and in many of those communities don't even have internet, right? They don't have easy access to Wi-Fi. Like, these are all solvable problems that we haven't solved in the more than 3 decades since the internet was invented. I don't think we can afford the luxury of being so slow on AI. It's just too powerful a technology. It's moving too fast, and we're at risk of leaving behind a lot of folks. So that was the other thing I said, is just fund training and capacity building in AI for small businesses.
How much of your work do you do with AI?
We are a marketing training company,
Mhm.
and marketing has been completely the tactical work of marketing has been completely reinvented over the last 2 years.
Hmm.
So any marketing company, any marketing training provider that isn't basically all in on AI is just behind. Now, it's the most powerful productivity tool ever invented, I would argue. Certainly when it comes to marketing and sales. They've done studies. There are 20 different use cases, ways to use AI in small businesses, and 11 of 20 relate to customer acquisition, marketing, sales, biz dev. So if you're not on that train, you're falling behind your competition. And if you're not training people on how to get onto that train as a training company, we're falling behind as well. So all of our training involves AI tools, but I like to say that AI is like a hammer. You can use it to build a house or put a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
So just doing more doesn't mean it's better or it's actually going to achieve your goals. More spaghetti against the wall is just more spaghetti, right?
Very true.
So that's the other thing is that we layer in the strategic use of the tools, and we have a very specific way of doing that is unique to us and critical. So I would never say to a business, go on ChatGPT and start generating content and start putting it everywhere. Because then you start getting those horribly written ChatGPT drafted emails, and immediately when you read it, and that is a turnoff. Like you don't have the courtesy to personally write me an email. You're going to have some robot write it, and it doesn't even sound like you. Like I have consultants who send me, thinly recooked ChatGPT outputs. And do they not know that I know exactly what they did and that I don't really value their input as a result? Like there's a lot of user error, in other words, in terms of the way the ChatGPT is being used in business today. And it can actually do more harm than good. And it's by definition generic because ChatGPT is trained on the internet. It doesn't know your business, it doesn't know you. And so you have to get skilled at using these AI tools, and that's what we teach.
Perfect. And how do you measure the effectiveness of everything you do, other than the fact that the people bring
There are
in
two
more business?
ways.
Two-way. Good. Go for
Number
it.
one is driving revenue.
Mhm.
So our average participant earns $13 in incremental revenue for every $1 in ads that they run while under our course. And the second is saved time. The average participant reports saving 2 hours a day in their marketing activities per person.
That is very effective.
Yeah. It's breathtakingly effective. I mean, can you imagine what 2 hours a day would do to you? But I'm living that experience right now. I'm far more effective and efficient in my work. I'm able to do a lot more work. I'm able to get a lot more out of my contractors. My business is far more efficient. And frankly, I have more time to spend with my family, which is a big deal to me. All of us should be aiming to run businesses that don't take us away from our families. And absolutely, ChatGPT has given me a lot more time, and I'm investing a lot of that time in just being a better dad, being a better husband, being a better son.
And that's the reason why we all become entrepreneurs. Well, one of the reasons why we become entrepreneurs is to spend more time doing the things that we want to do and that we enjoy doing.
Gregory, isn't it ironic that we end up creating these prisons for ourselves instead?
Yeah, if you don't look at ways to make yourself more productive, then you end up doing everything yourself. And yeah, then you end up putting probably more time than you did back in the corporate world, which is,
We end up being our own worst bosses,
yeah,
making us work harder and paying us less than we've ever in our career.
that's a good point. Very good point, Dan. Now tell us about this emerging franchise show you're going to and how you're going to help the folks over there at the emerging franchise show.
Yeah. Um, and let me just be clear about one other little point. Like when you start a business or when you're an emerging franchise, when you join a franchise and you're in your first couple of years,
Mhm.
you're going to work your tail off. You're going to make very, very little money. That's all part of the game. The deal is after a few years, that shouldn't be the case anymore. And for some people, that's a couple of years. Like with a franchise, it should happen pretty fast. If you're doing like me, building up my own brand, it's going to take longer. But there has to be a point at which you can have a more balanced life. If you find yourself 10 years in working just as hard as you did in year one, you're probably not doing something right. Anyway, so that's just my caveat is there's going to be, a few years of just the grind, but the grind has to have an end. You can sustain any level of grind as long as you know when the end point is. You burn out when there's no end in sight. Okay, so I just wanted to make that point because I don't want to minimize how hard it is to start something new and just the level of commitment you need to make. Often, commitments that hurt your ability to stay in good shape, that might not make you be as present for your family, but that should be time limited and temporary phase, not a forever. And that's where things get really sticky for a lot of Z's and a lot of small businesses. They're just stuck in this loop of grinding day after day.
Think
And I
about
just
like going to college, like getting a degree. You had to grind out for 2 to 4 years doing that, but you knew there was an end and you know what you're going to get at the end. So, Dan, it sounds like you're just relating that same thing there.
100%. And that grind, included summer breaks.
Well, that's
You know,
true. When you don't get summer
whereas
breaks, not
like
true.
too many of us are sprinting marathons. So
Good point.
yeah, so I'm going to the Emerging Franchise Conference put on by the International Franchise Association.
Mhm.
The IFA is the premier membership organization for franchises. They serve franchises of all shapes and shapes and sizes. The emerging franchises are, I'm sure there are a lot of them in your audience. These are either people
Yes.
who aspire to start a franchise,
Mhm.
like they have a great business or a couple locations and they want to franchise it. The Emerging Franchise Conference is a great place for them. And then the emerging franchises themselves, where, okay, now we have 10 or 15 or 25 or 100 units, and we're going through growing pains. And one of the things I love about the Emerging Franchise Conference is they bucket the franchises into 0 to 10, 10 to 25, 25 to 50, and 50 to 100, recognizing that the growth pains differ in each of those four categories. What am I going to do there? Basically pitch my wares. Um, I think that most franchises don't realize that an option like us exists. So most franchises basically either vet some agency that they then recommend to their franchisees and kind of coach the agency and their branding and what they want, the playbook, and then they basically let the agency execute it for them. But they don't provide coaching or training necessarily for the Z's on how to manage those agency relationships. That's a very common sort of use case. And then the other one is, okay, we want you to market yourselves. We want you to go to the local BNI chapter. We want you to run ads in the local paper. We want you to sponsor the local softball team. No, that's not what they're usually asking for. They're usually asking for more digital channels. We want you to be on Angie's List. We want you to be on these listing services. We want you to do local, Google local ads, and then it's like, well, how do we do that? And that's where we come in, is we will help translate the strategy and the branding requirements from national and help execution. It's an implementation support service. The other thing that we offer, which just doesn't exist, is I can't tell you the magic when you bring 10 franchisees together, tackling a tough problem together. The level of bonding, information sharing, best practices. There's a esprit de corps that develops when you get a group of people working together on a hard thing. And so that kind of cohort-based benefits. Some franchises feel it's a little dangerous to bring franchisees together. Our belief is that franchisees can learn from each other and accelerate each other's growth. I mean, ultimately, I have never met a franchise operator, a franchisee who isn't extremely focused on top line growth. Like they want to drive revenue.
Yeah, it's the
So let's get
idea.
them together and teach them how to do it, and then have them support each other as they drive revenue. And then, of course, the franchise benefits from that as well.
Absolutely. So where are we going? What's the trend in digital marketing these days?
Well, the trend is something called intelligent automation. So intelligent automation is AI taking over an increasing number of tasks that humans used to do manually. So I call it the boring but important stuff.
Hmm.
Now, automation is nothing new. Every franchise utilizes automation to some extent. So an obvious one would be when you call a franchise, there is a phone tree that directs you to the right piece of information, right? or
Yep.
a version of that that's a chatbot, right? Or to take it even a level further, a version of that that's an outbound AI voice phone call that just gives basic information, or an inbound call like a receptionist that's an AI. Like those are all examples of intelligent automation that are being built and incorporated into the customer journeys and the marketing workflows. These operational efficiencies, especially when done well, can actually create both incredible cost savings and better customer experience. So I'll give you like a really concrete example of this. Again, one of my partners is Yoel at Mosquito Joe. So Yoel, and he's always like teaching me new fancy things he's doing. So he had an issue, which is he had a outsourced receptionist company. But the problem was the outsourced receptionists were paid by the minute. And as he was listening back to the recordings, they were just chit-chatting with the client. Why? Because asking what the weather's like, wherever the customer is, it's friendly,
Right.
but it's wasting time and costing money. And so the cost of each phone call was upwards, it's more than 4 minutes and upwards of $30 per call.
Ouch.
He trained an AI bot that was a receptionist that was only equipped to do one of two things: send them to a salesperson or send them to a customer service rep. That was it. Because the inbound calls came from two types of people:
Hmm.
existing clients and prospective ones. So they
Yeah.
needed some way to distinguish who they were. That's all the AI chatbot did. And it just like, you could tell they were polite, but like, just, okay, I'm going to get you in touch with a sales rep. They'll be calling you shortly. Or, okay, let me transfer you to a customer service rep, and we'll get
Yeah.
your issue handled immediately. Like 1 minute average, 3 cents average cost. So from $30 in 4 minutes to 1 minute and 3 cents. Incredible time savings, better customer experience, and obviously saving Yoel a ton of money.
Amazing. I love it, Dan. What else? Uh, what have I not asked you yet that I should have asked you?
So I think one of the big questions that a franchisee is going to ask is, what level of support can I offer to my Z's to help ensure that their local marketing is on brand and cost effective? And what resources am I willing to put into those efforts? That is the core question in marketing if you're a franchisor. And every franchisor is going to come with a different perspective and approach to that question. But I think franchisors need to be more invested in the success of the local marketing of their Z's. What I often see is the profile of most franchisees is that they're entrepreneurs, primarily operationally focused, top line oriented operators. They bottom line oriented operators. They're really good at running efficient operations that deliver a service or product at a good cost. Where they really struggle is, how do you grow the top line? How do you grow revenue? How do you find more customers in an efficient way? That is what marketing and sales, but particularly marketing, is all about. And that is continuously where I see small businesses getting stuck. So I believe, as an emerging franchise, as a franchise in general, you need to attend to that fundamental business problem, which is, how do you give your Z's a playbook and implementation support so they can grow?
Couldn't agree on more on that, Dan. That's awesome. Where can they find you if they need some more information?
Absolutely. So first, I would welcome them to go to bizhack.com, and there you'll learn about our offerings and our training. You can also look at BizHack Academy on social media, and our YouTube channel, where we have a lot of free training as well. And then we also offer a free guide for all of your Z's, all of your folks that can use to get started with artificial intelligence for small business marketing. And they can find that at bizhack.com/AI guide.
BizHack.com, and then AI guide if you want the AI guide. AI guide. Good. Excellent information, Dan. Love it. I'm glad you're helping out all the franchises, especially the emerging ones who definitely need some help on that. I'll get them growing and get a lot of new entrepreneurs out there. That's the whole idea behind all this.
Thank you for the time, and thanks for serving the incredible franchise community that helps make our economy so strong. Franchises represent a huge portion of our economic activity, and I don't feel like they get the love they deserve. So I think we're all really grateful, Gregory, to Franchise Maven and the work that you do.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate your time, sir, and have a great day out there.
Thank you.